Hello everybody, happy holidays! It's the end of the year, which means that everybody is up their own buttholes making top 10 lists right now, and I'm not saying that to make fun of any of my friends who consistently do top 10 lists. You're all very funny, very clever, wonderful people. But this time of year specifically is when everybody's like, oh my god, I have to make my top 10 best moments in gaming of 2015, or oh, I gotta make that top 10 worst AAA titles of 2015 list, right? Like, it's just list season for whatever reason. So I figure, why not just participate? I'll make a list too, but I wanted my list to be in defense of my game of the year. My game of the year is Undertale, and I think we've reached, like, the other side. Like, it's almost like we experienced a 3-act play together. The first act was everyone going, oh, what's this game? Huh, I've never heard of this game before. Oh, maybe I'll try it out. The second act was everyone going, wow, this is actually a really well-made, interesting game with interesting mechanics, and man, it was all made by one person? Goodness gracious. Now, we're in Act 3, and Act 3 is everyone going, I don't see what the big deal is about Undertale. It's extremely overrated. Also, Undertale fans are the worst. Okay, yes, we're a little bit zealous. The people who love Undertale, like, really love Undertale, right? Like, really love it, and I'm totally one of those people. I'll be completely honest. But if you're the sort of person who's saying, you know what, I'm gonna wait until the hype has died down so that I can really enjoy this game, I am fully supportive of that. Like, for movies, oh my god, that happens to me with movies all the time. I'll have a friend just constantly tell me how amazing a movie is, or like multiple friends tell me you have to go see this movie, it's so incredible. And then I'll finally see it and I'm like, you guys built it up too much. It was just okay. You know, and I'm worried that right now a lot of people are experiencing that with Undertale. So if you would like to take a step back for a while and then dive into the Undertale world, I totally get it. You should absolutely do that. I want this video to be concise, which Lord knows it's probably not going to be because it's me, and also spoiler free. I want it to encourage you to give the game a shot, regardless of what you've heard about the fandom, about all of us just being like, Undertale is so good. I would love it if somebody watched this video and said, man, that actually sounds like it could be a good experience for me, regardless of how long you want to wait before you actually sit down and play it. So welcome to my top 8 spoiler-free reasons why Undertale is my game of the year. Let's get started. Oh, actually, we should probably start with like a small summary of the game, like the story of the game. And again, I won't spoil anything, this will be very succinct. But essentially, the game is about a world where there are humans and monsters were at war, and eventually monsters were driven underground. So monsters live in sort of these underground ruins, and humans live above ground. You play a child, the fallen child, who is playing in this area and falls down a hole. And at the bottom of the hole is the entrance to the ruins. So the game, essentially, overall, is your journey as the child trying to get out of the ruins. And by doing that, you meet all kinds of really interesting characters. There are lots of different ways that you can interact with the characters and the world in general. And it's interesting. It's a really cool story. And it seems pretty straightforward. Right? Like, it's not a super complex idea. You're starting at point A, you're trying to get to point B, and there's all of this stuff in the middle that happens on your way there. So what exactly makes this game so worthy of a Game of the Year award from yours truly? My first reason would be that the characters are fantastic. If you've somehow existed on the internet and haven't seen fan art of these characters, it would blow my mind. Everyone who plays this game gets really attached to the characters because they're all really unique. Like, really interesting characters who all have really interesting relationships with one another and are very multifaceted. Like, no character is one-dimensional. And sometimes you don't see that unless you've played the game through a couple of times too, which I think is really interesting. Like, depending on who you are in the game, they will show you a different side of themselves, which I think is so cool. And this might seem like something that should exist regardless when you're making characters, but none of the characters are good or bad, right? Characters are passionate about different things. They care about very specific things. But I don't think that you could look at any character and say like, oh, they're a good guy and they're a bad guy. Especially, again, if you've played the game multiple times, you sort of see all of these different sides of different characters in the game and see what it is that they specifically care about, like what they're willing to fight for. And there are specific characters in the game that are portrayed in a sort of gray way where you don't know. Like there's a lot of build up to meeting them and you have no idea really what to expect. And I thought that that was interesting too. And in a game where, you know, you're the only human and everyone else is just kind of like super weird monster characters who are typically very adorable looking, it adds an interesting layer to that to be like, okay, I need to accept early on that what I think this character is going to be like is probably wrong. Like, just judging by what they look like. From there, actually, okay, so my second point would be that the graphics are used really well. And by that I mean that I think most of the time when people look at a game that's in, you know, a pixely style, they say, all right, cool, great, doing that old gimmick. Graphics do something to assist the game, I think. They add kind of this innocent layer that gets broken a lot. And I can go into that more on another point that I definitely want to make later, but the graphics, I think, exist for a reason. Like, the way that the lore and the world is built, I think with this graphic style, it assists in making you feel like it's going to be very straightforward. Like, all right, you know, this looks like plenty of other games that I've played where I'm the hero and I'm on a quest and I'm doing the thing, right? And I can take pretty much everything at face value and it's going to progress as a normal RPG. And the times when it betrays that become so much more important, because the game actually does interact with you as a player. And so I think to have this world that's so graphically simple be directly interacting with you in reality juxtaposes much better. Like it does something very specific to you psychologically while you're playing it. The lore just in general, I think, would also be another big thing for me, because there are things, look, people are still to this day finding weird Easter eggs in that game, whether it's musically or like there are a couple things you can find by like specifically breaking the game in order to find characters that people didn't know existed but were talked about or mentioned in kind of a low-key way in the game, right? There are things where there's just so much in this game. You can tell that it was made with a lot of love and a lot of preparation. And I think even though the journey that you take, again, like, seems very A to B, the world that you've invaded as a human has so much to it. Like, there's so much that's happened before you've gotten there, right? And people are still sort of, like, picking at what that is, what that story is, and what it all has built toward. The lore and the characters have also affected battle mechanics in this game. So pretty much every time you're in a major fight, the elements of the battle are typically the same, but the mechanics and how you wind up fighting this person will change, which is really cool because it's always reflective of what's actually going on in the story. So random encounters in this game are very easy to understand, and it is explained to you at the very beginning of the game, where you just choose what you want to do, and then that's what happens. When you're in a battle against like a major character, and it's a major story part, right? They use those same elements again, but you feel like it's reflective of what's actually going on. Like, the ways that things have changed were necessary in order for it to really fit with what's happening and with the characters and how you can imagine this battle actually progressing. And there are like really, really talented artists who have sort of taken a lot of these fights and tried to translate, you know, the kind of like rudimentary mechanics that you engage in to what it would have actually looked like in that battle. And it's so cool because you can see it. They also build on themselves really well, which is just a very basic element of game design, right? Like, it's something that as a game designer you should take into account. Like, if I'm going to add in something new, I need to have built all of the base for that, right? Like, I want this to incorporate into everything else smoothly. And I think Undertale does that very well. Oh, shoot. Something that I wanted to mention, like, right after characters was the diversity in this game. This game is extremely diverse. And you might say, but Dodger, they're all monsters, right? But in terms of, like, character types and relationships and stories, they are reflective of things that we see day to day with, like, people in our lives, either as a metaphor or just, like, very, very openly, which might not make sense. God, I'm trying so hard to keep this spoiler free, you guys. It's, like, so difficult. Oh my goodness. But yeah, there are just so many story elements in this game and so many relationships in this game where you're like, that was put in there flawlessly. You know, where again, you get so attached to these characters, and if you do some digging and you're interested in the lore, you wind up, you know, reading things or hearing things or talking to a character who gives you just like a little bit of something that makes you go, oh my god. Like, it hits you at a certain point. You're like, that's the story that they're telling right now. That's so interesting because it so flawlessly was built into this world. And is now like a major element of that character, right? It's just so cool. It's so cool, and I don't know how they managed to do it. It blows my mind. Okay, so anyways, the soundtrack is incredible. It's like the best soundtrack I've heard in a really, really long time. I play Undertale remixes and just Undertale music as stream openers all the time because the music is just so good. Like, the somber music is really emotionally powerful. The more upbeat music just like makes you want to dance. It's so good, and it's all by Toby. Like, it's the same guy. The same guy who made the game made all of the music, and I'm just like, how are you so talented? I don't understand. It's just, the music is great. It's so good. And I highly, highly recommend that if you like the music, that you go to his Bandcamp and buy the album from him, because I love it. I listen to it all the time. The game also manages to be really funny and sweet in a lot of ways, but also very dark and terrifying in a lot of ways. And sometimes you don't see one or the other depending on how you've played the game, right? But I think the first time that I played it, the first time I was like, man, you know, there are lots of times where it seems like it's going to get serious, but then it does like a very Brechtian break where it becomes funny, and the story overall with all of these characters winds up being really sweet and just, you know, man, I want these people to be my friends forever, you know, as this character. But even then, even in that sort of a run that's overall pretty sweet and fun and adorable, you'll have these moments that are so dark. It touches on a lot of things that are directly associated with the fact that it's a game, which is going to be my final reason, and a very, very important reason why Undertale is my game of the year. But just overall, like, the game manages to make you think about a lot of strange things. And I think it's done really well. I keep saying that over and over again because I can't give examples, right? I'm trying to just encourage you to play the game, to tell you that it's going to be emotionally worth your time to play this game. But as I said, my final reason is that the game knows that it's a game. It's one of those few games that says to itself, okay, so I'm going to make a game, and I'm going to use the fact that it's a game in order to make the experience even better. And I think when people look at the medium that they're designing in and the medium that they're trying to, you know, create in, and say, what's something that I can do with this that I couldn't do with anything else? Like, if Undertale had been a comic book, you could have told the same story, mostly. But really important elements of the story and the lore could not be done unless it's a game. Unless the game specifically is interacting with you, the player. And unless they take core elements of what makes a game and what people are so used to in terms of having a game and turn it against you in a very twisted way. There are multiple times when I was playing this game that I was like, that the game would give me anxiety because I would realize, because you would be reminded, like, they know you're there, right? Like the game is talking to you specifically. And even there was one time when I was playing it on stream and the game, like, kind of also talked to anyone who was watching, and that made all of chat super nervous, right? Like, everybody was like, oh my god, the game is talking to us now, right? Anytime that a creator really looks at their medium and tries to utilize it to the best of their abilities in order to create something that can't exist anywhere else, I think that it shows another level of creativity and dedication to a specific craft, and I have to appreciate that because it was done so well in this game. I had the greatest emotional impact from it. I had the... I don't know how to say this. I don't think I can. I had the best experience being frustrated that I've had in years, I think. And it really tests you as a player, often. And I think it's just designed very well and has characters that people are going to be really connected to for a long time. So I think everyone should give the game a try. I think everyone should see whether or not it's a game that speaks to them. And if that means that you have to wait a while until everybody's done talking about Undertale so that you can truly enjoy it, do that. Like, whatever you think is going to be best in order for you to really just, like, be able to sit down and experience this game, do that. And then from my heart to yours, I think you should do that. So that's my 8-ish reasons why Undertale is my game of the year. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any other reasons that I sort of left out, or if you think that the way that I explained something was not great, keep in mind I'm trying to be as vague as possible, and it is so difficult. I honestly do think that the game is great, and I hope that more than correcting me in the comment section, I hope that people will continue on my journey to encourage everyone in a spoiler-free way to play the game. So, yeah, I hope you've all had a lovely year in games. I'm going to be heading out to England pretty soon here, which is super fun. But, yeah, have a great holiday season, guys, and I'll see you on the internet. Bye-bye. Mwah.